It is never too late to start living your life by design. Shaw Bernard, the visionary behind Strut Models, brings the essence of her Trini roots to the New York City fashion world and beyond. She has established a premier boutique agency which represents a range of top models in the making. Enjoy our conversation where we cover everything from what it takes to have success in the modeling space to what brands need to know about working with a female-led agency that's on a mission to reshape the core of the fashion industry. Let's dive in. All right, welcome, Shaw, to our conversation. Welcome to Life by Design podcast. We're going to dive right in so that everybody could get to know all about you and all about Strut Models. But before we go really deep, I know that you had a special day yesterday. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
How did you celebrate?
You know what? It was really it was a low key day. I just did a spa day and
Ooh,
yeah, which I hadn't had in a really long time. So it was so necessary.
that's phenomenal.
Yeah. And then I just had dinner with friends. We went to the
Okay.
market to support another girlfriend. And then we ended up at dinner. Super, super low key.
That's not low key. That's yummy. I love it. I love that you did something special for yourself, even if it was just a spa day.
Yeah, yeah. So I had made this goal for myself 3 years ago, and I was like, I want to wake up in a different country on my birthday every year. And this year didn't happen. So I was like bummed. I'm like, oh. So the next thing was to just, keep it chill, keep it low key. Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into the conversation about you now in the modeling world. What first inspired you to even enter the world of modeling, the fashion industry?
So I first entered the world of modeling at 14 years old. I moved to
Wow.
the US and I'm from Trinidad, and I kept getting questions like, are you a model? Are you a model? And as a young girl, when I moved here, I wanted to be a lawyer. That's what I thought I would be once as I was going through school and things.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, and so that kind of really got my wheels turning, and so from 14 to 22, I span around trying to figure out how I got into an agency and things of that nature, and then I signed my first modeling contract in 22, and then 3 years later, I opened Strut, so
Wow.
I've been doing that ever since, so yeah, that's kind of been the trajectory.
What did it take for you to get in with that first modeling agency? I know it takes a while for so many models. I've even seen models online talk about going to, I don't know if they were represented or not, but going to go-sees and just feeling like that no one had their back. How did you get in with a modeling agency in the first place?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think I saw something. It was probably around Fashion Week time, and I saw
Mm,
an open
okay.
call or of some sort, and I went to that. And it turned out that there was an agency sponsor for the event, and they were
Oh,
new and they were seeking new talent. And then I had an opportunity to have a meeting with them after. So
and how was that? How was that experience being so young and just coming into the industry and now being with an agency and going out for work? How did that feel? Was it what you expected it to be?
No. I mean, it felt good because
Okay.
to get the representation for sure, just because, after you'd kind of been spinning your wheels for so long, finally you're having an opportunity to be represented because,
Wow.
there's prestige around that. And,
Mm,
and then it was challenging though, because though the agency saw, like value in having me on the board and things like that, the times that we were in weren't conducive to models of color. So there
mm.
was the challenge there.
Were you one of many, or were you the only
So
at the
I,
agency?
no, I was one of many. Yeah, this agency was
Okay,
boutique and
that's
they
fantastic.
yeah, at the time, it was interesting, right? Like, they definitely had a lot more models of color and then, different shades and things like that. Sizes wasn't a thing yet. So we weren't doing curve or plus or any of that.
Mm, mhm.
So yeah, but there were a couple girls of color. I mean, I
Okay,
can think of the three of us in my head, but
okay.
it
Oh,
it
3.
was.
Okay, one of a few, which is
Yeah, a handful, really.
okay. All right, so let's shift the conversation a bit. Life by Design is about considering all that we are and tapping into the small joys as we do, our capacity to make massive impacts with our passions, with the work we do in the world. So, my question for you is, what are some of the ways you infuse those small joys into your early morning routine?
Yeah, so I have been really getting a lot more intentional about that because it is true. Life is full and complex
Yeah.
and a lot, and I'm doing a lot. And so, years during the pandemic, I read The 5 a.m. Club
Oh,
by
okay.
Robin Sharma,
Mm,
Open Mornings Elevate Your Life. And
mm.
I have gotten away a little bit from like the whole, 5 a.m. routine. My alarm still goes off at 5 a.m. That's for sure. I make sure that happens so that my body like awakens.
Yeah.
But I'd use that time in the morning to just do a lot of thinking, praying, moment.
Mhm.
So I do that. And just kind of setting my intention for the day that I would like to have. It's not always perfect, but I do wake up in the morning. I also make it a point to like not leave my bed unless I have given
Mm.
day,
Yes.
yeah, so that's how. And then my favorite snuggle buddy in the world, my son, comes in and brings
Oh,
much more joy into the morning because he
oh
loves
my
to cuddle.
gosh.
And he gets up like ready for the world, and that brings
How
joy.
old is he?
He's 7, and he is the
Oh,
Jack in the Box, like, up, bing, ready to go.
at that age, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and so joy is infused there because once he
mhm.
comes and, he wants, like, the closeness and the love, and he wants the kiss and the hugs, and, that's just a moment for me to just really embrace that, like, wow, I could be, feel all the feels in that moment.
Yes. Oh gosh, I feel it just hearing you talk about
Yeah,
it.
it's beautiful. I'm like, "Oh, I got, like, really, like, blessed,
Yeah, yeah,
have such
that's
an
special.
amazing boy." Yeah.
That's beautiful. Okay, so that would certainly set the tone for your day, just being able to spend some time reflecting. What I started doing recently, you mentioned that you don't even get out of bed until you have a certain mindset.
Yeah.
You didn't use that word, but that was the gist of it, I think.
Yeah.
What I started doing recently is, yeah, doing that more consistently. I would do it intermittently, but now that I've been doing it more consistently, who was it that I heard say she doesn't let her feet touch the ground until she considers all that she's grateful for? I think it was Oprah.
Mm.
And I started doing that. And can I tell you something? It makes a difference.
Yeah.
It makes a difference in it adds on to, what I need to enter my day with openness and clarity and perspective.
Yeah.
So I join you in that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Well, Denzel Washington also says that, like, he puts his slippers under his bed, so he's gotta get on his knees
Ooh.
every morning to be able to get them, from under there, so
That's good. That is good. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Uh, since we're talking that, somebody else I was listening to, oh my gosh, I think it was Oprah again.
Yes, it's been,
You wake up.
a
Yeah,
a
listen,
long
she
time, yeah.
got a lot of stuff together. And she said, it was recent. She said she still kneels to pray.
Mm.
Sometimes, in this fast-paced world, and I believe you could pray anywhere you are.
Yeah.
You could pray, standing, sitting, wherever. But I started doing more of that. And it's a deeper experience.
Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, it makes a difference. How you start your morning is gonna literally set the tone for your entire day.
Yeah.
And if you miss a couple of, not that you have to be perfect with it, but if you miss a couple of those days, you're gonna notice
Yeah.
and how you feel at the end of the day. Okay, so let's move on a little bit because I could talk to you all day about that.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned Trinidad.
That's
We
right.
are both
Kitty
from
girl to the
Trinidad.
moon. Kitty to the moon.
Exactly. Okay. So have you been home? When last you been home?
Oh gosh. At the so long I didn't see ya. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't go home as often. Sadly, the last time I was in Trinidad was in 20 for the passing
Ooh.
of my cousin
Oh.
COVID. And then the year
Oh.
before, I was also there for the passing of my brother. So Trinidad has got a not so good taste
It's
in my mouth.
unfortunate.
Yeah, because the last two times I was there.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh.
So yeah. But
I'm
my
so
mom goes all the time. She loves it. She's getting ready for a birthday trip in the summer. She goes for at least three weeks to a month, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
put my request of the things I want her to bring back.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
My mom is actually leaving next week to go to see my grandmother.
Mhm.
I went to see her last September, and she just turned 100 earlier this year in February.
Me?
And I want to go again, but I was just there, so
Yeah.
I can't go right now. But okay, so how has your traditional Trini or not so traditional Trini upbringing or roots helped to shape who you are today? Because we know that there's a lot of richness in being from the Caribbean.
Absolutely.
Attitude.
Absolutely. That permeates through my entire being
Mm.
daily. And now I've lived in the US more, longer than I have lived in Trinidad, but I'm just
Mm.
still so connected to my roots. Like it was
Of
there where I realized like that I was special, that there was something different about me. And I have held that in my heart forever. So I always go
mm,
back to the little girl that knew how she grew up, knew the family that she came from, and knew
mhm,
that I didn't fit in. And that
mhm.
and that's
Yeah.
what shaped me because that's what I'm striving for every day, just more because I just know that thing that
You
stirred
just
me ever since I was a little girl there.
mhm.
And so it guides how I do everything. My education background, that was all really pivotal and crucial and a part of my upbringing. So all of those things I still stand on, the way I parent my son, right? Like, we hear a lot of things about gentle parenting and all that stuff, and I believe in that. But I've got that Trinidadian science down where
I need to do is
it's just look at the boy, like, and then so fortunately, like that has really helped me because he knows and then I just remind him that your mother don't play. All right. When I gotta go with the accent for him, he knows mommy is serious.
exactly.
And
And
yeah,
for us, when the kids were little, it was like when we're going to the store, it was like, okay, when we go inside,
yes.
the behavior.
And the older I have gotten, I have been able to embrace that. So I just bring that with me everywhere I go because
Mm.
that's who I am. And I'm not afraid of that. And I embrace it fully.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Okay, so tell us now how Strut Models came to be, and tell us a bit about the clients that you serve at the agency.
Yeah, awesome question. So the little strut engine, as I like to call it, is 11 years now. So long time, long time. And when I started Strut, it was a modeling. So I like to say now I've pivoted it into its third life cycle, like a cat.
Mm.
Like that,
Mhm.
right? And
Right?
so we're on the third. We'll see, we got six more to go. But it was just an idea that someone had put in me, like, hey, you should do something for girls. And going back to just that little fire as a young girl in Trinidad that I knew like I'm
Mhm.
supposed to do more and be more and all of those things. And I always thought about being a boss, like entrepreneur and all that stuff wasn't a word at the time. So when it was presented to me that, you should probably think about doing something for young girls, they look up to you, and people were always in the modeling industry. I was like,
Mm.
oh, okay, you know what? Let me start a modeling school because I looked around and I also noticed like there weren't any Black owned modeling schools. There weren't any women, Black women running it, right? Um,
Right.
and so I'm like, she gave me that little bug, but me, and my character, I'm always that excellence and thinking like, how could you do it at the highest level? So it didn't occur to me that it could be like a little Saturday class with a non-for-profit situation with some girls. I was just like, oh no, we're gonna go full fledged and I'm gonna I'll start a company and I'm gonna have a modeling school. And so that's where Strut was birthed. And once I got it going, then I was like, you know what? I really wanna eventually become a full service like agency. I'm in New York. I want to compete at a high level. I want to play in the pond with the big boys.
Sure. Oh,
And I
yeah.
didn't know how that would happen, what that looked like, what it would take. There's no blueprint, so everything has
Mhm.
been trial and error. And so I pivoted from the modeling capacity to mother agency because then as I grew and I learned that, oh, there's another avenue here. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let me transition into that. And then the other transition is where we are now, which happened 3 years ago to become full service, which is where I always envisioned Strut being. And so now we are booking, we're also still scouting and we're developing, and then we're placing internationally as well. So
Mm.
let me just walk you through like the three phases. So the first phase of Strut was modeling school, just really focused on like education, offering workshops, like helping people to just learn more about the modeling industry and provide some opportunity on like how to.
Oh, okay.
And then the mother agency phase was okay. So we've evolved a little bit more. We're still going to offer like development stuff, but we're really going to be focused on scouting, development, and placement. And so preparing
Mm,
the models, being the bridge between getting to a larger agency in New York or LA, Chicago, or something, or even Europe. The scouting still, because we still need to, get our own talent. And then we have to develop them. So that piece is still happening. But we're all
mm.
booking because clients are now coming and saying,
Ah,
we so and so, we see so and so, or we're going, hey, we have so and so, and she or he would be a good fit for your brand.
I
So
see.
it's adding the booking layer onto it.
Okay, fantastic. You talked a bit about scouting.
Mhm.
How do you know that a particular girl has that it factor or that ability to when I think of a model, I think of someone who is able to bring the essence of who they are forth, of course, but also embody what a brand is about and tell the story of the brand through their poses without saying a word.
Right.
So how do you know a model even has the capacity to make that happen?
Yeah. Well, the first response I want to give to that question is it's 50-50. You're taking a chance. You really don't know, right? Like, and Sarah Blakely said this
Mm,
into something recently that's kind of the ratio for staffing. So there are the obvious things that we need in the space, which is from a physicality standpoint, right? So they need
yeah.
particular height, certain measurements, facial features, and all of that stuff. And it's a bit of a science, really, and people don't even know it. I was explaining it to someone
Wow.
the other day, and I'm like, we look for this and we look for that, and the face and the symmetry, and then we have to look at the body, and then these have these kind of proportions and all of these things. And we're like,
Mm,
oh my God. So not every tall, pretty girl that's skinny is a model, right? But then when you talk about do they have the capacity to be able to embody what the brand is looking
mm,
for and
yeah.
understanding movement and angles and all that stuff,
Mm,
those are skill sets that need to be developed. And I think that that's one of the myths that people have around this space. It's like
mhm,
there is natural ability,
mhm,
and natural beauty and all of those things, but it has to be honed in. It's like any craft, any career, any job. No one wakes up and they're a lawyer. No one wakes up and they're a doctor. You can have the aspiration to do that. And then you
mhm,
go on the journey to refine yourself to become it. And even when you're in that space, then you work to be better, right?
mm,
Learning never stops. So that part is the part that's hard. And that's where I say it's a 50-50 because you can get the girl that has the other things.
mm,
Like baking a
mhm.
cake, you have egg, you have butter, you have milk, whatever. I don't bake, so I don't know all the things, flour, what, right? All the ingredients that you need to do some caking. But if you don't put them together, the right measurements, you bake it at the right temperature, all the
Right.
things, and you don't have cake, you just have ingredients.
You have something,
You just
something that's not really
you could
edible.
maybe make pancakes or you could, whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, some things you know it and you see it and you feel it, but then knowing like the true capability is when it's put to the test because then we're
Mm,
talking about character. We're talking about
right.
romantic. You're
A
talking
full
about
package.
resilience, having the ability to really withstand the
Yes.
pressure that the space puts on you.
Mm. Yes, yes.
So there's no clear answer. I go out scouting and I will see from a physical standpoint, like, oh yes, that's it. And then I have to, do my own assessment, right? Which I'm really much more intentional about now because at Strut, I'm doing agency different, so I'm not just looking at that stuff, like the outer things, right? Which is still necessary. And I think that that's important to really highlight here because our space has evolved and we're a lot more inclusive. And hey, raising my hand the first
Right.
time to say we
Sure.
need it, but I'm also looking for the things that we can't see because
Mm.
that's
Yes, yes,
even
yes.
more crucial. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. As a layperson to the modeling industry, I'm peripheral to it, of course. I know there's a lot of conversation around Zendaya. The joke was the modeling industry is lucky that she's not a model because she does it so effortlessly.
Right.
Right?
No,
So
yeah.
models looking at her may feel that they have to do it with that level of precision and passion, and that must be intimidating for new models wanting to come into the space.
Yeah. No, it's like young guys wanting to play basketball and they're looking at LeBron and they're looking
Yeah,
at Kobe
true,
and they're
true, true.
looking at, Magic and they're looking at Michael, right? Like, and they're Curry and the greats. It's like when you see it done at that level, that's what you want to aspire to. Now, of course, you're going to make it your own because there's only one Jordan and one Kobe and one LeBron. And when they're
Mhm.
compared, each person still brings their own skill sets and their own unique abilities to the table. But the thing that is non-negotiable is the level of excellence, right? Just
Yeah.
continued fight to be at the top. And that's what needs to happen in the modeling space as well. To see that kind of success, right? If you look at Zendaya and you look at the supers, they're distinguished for a reason because
Mm,
they understand what it takes to compete at the highest level because it's a sport. It's a game that needs to be
right.
played, bar none. And so when young girls and guys, but fortunately this is a girls' playground, right? Like we run this space, models are in high demand, are paid higher. The one industry where women command more money than men, right?
Wow. Okay.
Um, so it's a great thing. But for young people coming into this space, they need to understand that. And that's why I made the analogy and the correlation to sports, because
Mhm.
it's not enough to just be tall and skinny and pretty. Everybody that has that is not a model. And yes, someone like Zendaya or Naomi, who's still at a high level, you've got to eat, breathe, and sleep that. I wake up every day and I'm thinking about what I'm putting into my body. I'm thinking about my skincare,
Mm.
like I'm working out, I'm eating right, I'm getting the sleep, I'm refining my skill set on how to move, how to present, how to speak, how to engage. I mean, it's work. And for young people coming into the space and wanting to do this, that's the kind of reverence they need to come into the space with. Yeah, and even with social media now, the parameters are blown open. Everybody wants to model. I really am sticking to our foundation and our fundamentals and really helping our models have the tools and the mindset and the work ethic to be able to see success because it's not what people think it is.
Mhm. No, I agree. I agree. And when we talk about inclusion in the modeling industry, there's also the plus size model
Yeah.
category to talk about. So what if there's more representation now,
Mhm.
but it wasn't for so long, plus size models that curvy girls could look up to. So how do you see that the industry has evolved or is moving toward more acceptance, inclusivity, love for that category?
Yeah. Well, I mean, those girls are working. Those girls are commanding money. They really are. Absolutely. So things have evolved. Progress has been made. Love it. Here for
Mm,
it. Championing it.
yeah.
There's definitely more work to do for sure. And for me, when I look at the space, I'm like, what we've seen in the last 11 years, right? So from the time I started Strut and maybe even like a little bit before, inclusion was around having more models of color. And so we saw that happen, right? We're seeing more Black models, more Asian models. And then the inclusivity parameter opened up more with the introduction of Ashley Graham and then Paloma and those girls, right? So now we brought it to the curve perspective. What we've also seen recently now as an additional layer of inclusivity was for age, because in this space,
Yeah.
acting, you see after
Mhm.
a particular age. Like back then in New York, when you could sign a girl like at 12, 13, 14 or whatever, and then she worked until like 20, 22, and then, done away with. We're not
Yeah.
there anymore. So we've got like three pillars, I think, and maybe even four, right? So there's models of color, curve plus models, models that
Mhm.
are older, and then models that have varying abilities, right? So those four things
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Yes.
have entered the space, which is great to see. And I'm really doing work to ensure that that's not just trends. We don't go back to a place where it is like non-existent again and then
Mm.
dark. I mean, fashion is always changing, right? It really rules the world. And the Devil Wears Prada was a movie and successful for real. Fashion does rule the world because no one's going outside naked. Right, that's the first part.
Exactly.
So it really informs how we operate. And so we want to really be careful about not getting back to a space where diversity or all those things are not included. I think it just needs to become a norm. We represent models, right? But again, there's a reason that particular measurements are needed from an economic standpoint.
True.
And as a designer, you understand that you make a sample size has got to fit these measurements. And some might say, well, why don't you make a sample size that fits whatever? But you're not going to make 10 different sample sizes. You've got to keep your costs low. So you got to do what works here. As we move forward, it just needs to be that we're representing beauty, in all its different facets. But we're still gonna maintain some standards and parameters around that.
You touched upon the fact that this level of inclusion may be a trend.
Mhm.
And that strikes a nerve for me because I came up in the industry at a time when there was such little inclusion in the designer space.
Mhm.
I was one of, I don't even know how many because I never saw any other Black designers in corporate like I was. There were, of course, other Black designers like there Patrick Kelly and Tracy Reese and Dapper Dan and others. But in corporate, I didn't go to not one meeting where I met another Black designer. And I just remember at that time, there was a great wave of Black models that were all of a sudden revered in the industry. And it was the first time that I felt like Blackness or people of color were seen. Who were the Black models?
Naomi and Tyra,
Naomi.
Sean, Fan, and then Danya Luna. She was the first Black supermodel, right? Like she was the first to grace the cover. Was it Vogue or Bazaar?
So back then, when I saw all of that inclusion happening, I was so excited as a young designer in the industry, and I fed off of that. And I thought it was going to be lasting. It completely shifted. And by the time we got to the mid 90s, 2000s, it was like it never happened. When COVID hit, and all of a sudden, this conversation about inclusivity, making space for Black creatives to exist in the fashion world, all those decades ago of seeing us used as a trend for the sake of commerce. I still feel a certain way about that. And I'm just wondering, do you have hope that it will not be a trend this time?
Yeah. Well, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever. I mean, I was still a young girl in Trinidad, right? With no concept of doing anything. I knew as I grew up that, we had one of the first Miss Universes. We had Wendy Fitzwilliam. So I knew like the beauty pageant world and like how
And
major that was and all that.
so it's different.
And
I came up when I was 2, so I grew up here.
But then there's my own journey too of like when I moved here and I was aspiring, it wasn't that period where the Black model had been erased, right? So the challenges of that were just thick. I remember going to castings and not even being seen and standing on the corner crying. And there's a particular designer in mind and this is a Black designer. And I'm just like, I hold on to that, because that was just a painful time for me. But nevertheless, now I'm in a position of influence and decision making, right? And that's where the change will happen. See, when we talk about this new push for diversity and inclusion after the George Floyd horrific incident,
Yes.
and everybody is now wanting to make space for Blackness and all of that stuff, right? And so we had all of these conversations, and this happened in every industry, right? Like every industry decided that,
Oh,
we need to have more Black this, more Black that, more Black whatever. And then there were all the DEI initiatives and all of those things. But I sit here as someone in fashion and particularly in the modeling space, and I can say to you that internally things didn't change, right? So agencies got more models of color because, the clients wanted to be able to put that out there to say like, hey, we're supporting
right.
whatever. The agents didn't diversify. Cast
No.
and directors didn't diversify. Hair and makeup still is not on that upward tick. And ownership, right? You're talking to a Black woman in New York that is the owner of an agency, booking agency. Not
Yeah.
the first to have done it, but standing solely like the others that have done it before me did. When no Beth Ann Harbison had her agency and when she was alone. And now there's me and I'm alone. And there's another woman that I met that had her agency in LA for 25 years, woman of color. And I met her 2 years ago and she was like, I've been hearing about you. I've been wanting to meet you. And I want to pass the baton to you because she's pivoted into a different capacity now, but still in the modeling industry. So that for me is where the change happens and where we don't shift back. Because if there aren't people that look like us in this space, then there's no one to advocate for it. And to your point about the Black bodies being used for the sake of commerce, well, that's what's happening. It's a profitable opportunity right now because you can get more on the dollar for a model of color.
Yep.
A rhyme. And so you go and you source that because you're in business, and in business you want to make money, right? But for me, as for me and my little Strutville, for me and my household, right? I'm in business, of course, and I want to make money, but I'm also connected to, the social impact of things and the community aspect of things. And so that's why I say, I'm doing agency different because me giving an opportunity to a model of color, of course, not just anybody, right? Because I know what we're looking for. And like I keep saying, I still want to stay within the standards and things like that. But it's opportunity that I didn't have. And that's important. I can relate to a young Black model because I've been on that side as well. I understand the rejections, but I also understand the resiliency and the perseverance. And I've pivoted now into entrepreneurship and ownership and things like that. So I can really give the gamut so that that model can really have the relation. I have natural hair. A lot of the models are coming in with natural hair. The agents don't know how to handle that. Like I can fluff my girl's hair because
Right. That's a whole other conversation.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I can like go on for years about this, honestly, because I'm really passionate about it. But I think the main point I want to make in terms of is this a trend and how do we not make it that is really having the larger conversation of internal infrastructure in agencies because that has not shifted.
From my purview, it requires people like you to come into a space and take ownership of the category.
Yeah.
And actually be a base and a source that women of color, of all colors, can look to. Because if we want lasting change, I mean, this is the part people don't like to say out loud.
Yeah.
We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
In most cases, I'm not going to say all, and collaboration is so important. Of course, we don't do anything alone. There are collaborators everywhere that people don't see. When you see a Black business, then they all of a sudden, are in the forefront. They didn't do that only with Black support.
For sure.
There are little pieces of the machine that people don't get to see when a business is being built, whether it be a supplier or part of a network, whatever. But having women of color, men of color, people of color at the helm of companies that can shift the trajectory of the industry I think is so important, and it's why I am helping designers to learn how to build their own.
Yeah.
Because if they're waiting to get a position as a designer, like I had in the fashion industry, they're gonna be waiting forever
Yeah.
in most cases. And so how do you surmount that? You build your own.
Yeah.
There's access, you have the ability, you just need the guidance and the support and the advocacy
Yeah.
and the path forward. So I love what you're doing. I love that you have taken this brave endeavor on because I know it's not as beautiful as simple as it looks.
Mm. It's
Yeah.
not. I'm like, why did I commit the last 2 years of my life to this? Like, am I crazy or what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Here's the thing that I say about this because it's definitely not easy. It's challenging beyond comprehension, and I have the grades to prove it. And I'm only in my 30s, so that's a problem. What I've come to terms with, and I say that the work that I do at Strut is personal, but it's also purposeful.
Oh,
And I believe that I've been placed in this space to do this work for the
mm,
sake of inspiration and motivation and all that stuff, right? I know that this is the vehicle that is being used for me to be able to share my story of
mm,
resilience and the perseverance and the overcoming and all of that stuff. It is who I am at my core is wanting to do more, be more, and
mm,
inspire people along the way. I would do that anywhere, but that again goes back to that strong Trinidadian ness,
yes,
of like excellence, right? Like wherever
yes.
you are, be the best. Get
Non-negotiable.
non-negotiable. Like you can start at the bottom because you have to
Right,
start.
right, right.
Then from day one, you're working as if you're already at the top because that's where you're going. So for me, I know that there's purpose in the work that I'm doing, and I'm placed here because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this space for sure. And this is the work that I love, and that's really what keeps me going, right? Like 11 years later, starting as a little peon, but still wake up every day with love and gratitude too, right? Because I get to do this. Like this position has
Right.
not been occupied by very like a handful of people. And
Right.
we've created those opportunities for ourselves, right? But I really, really love what I do. I mean people are calling me left and right. Like I had a call yesterday, true story. I had a call yesterday from a former employer. And she goes, I
Oh,
just saw the most beautiful girl. I looked up and I saw legs and I was like, oh my God, she needs to model and I know where she can do it. And she called me.
mm,
She called me,
wow.
And so daily, because it's hard as all hell, but they're daily reminders, even as small as that.
Mm,
You would get
yeah.
a phone call or you would have a conversation on the street with somebody or something would just happen to constantly remind you as to why you're in this space, why you should keep going, why this is where you're supposed to be where you're at, even though
Mm,
it's incredibly challenging.
yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
That's the path of entrepreneurship. I think you have to be a special character to be an entrepreneur. It's not for
Right, you gotta be
everyone.
crazy. You were crazy.
You have to be a little, you have to be, yeah,
Yeah.
very comfortable with a bit of risk and tenacious as ever and passionate enough to see your vision through. And also, you have to have patience
Yeah.
and know that it's coming and not give up when those highs and lows come that I sometimes talk about. I could talk to you all day.
Yeah. Yes.
But let's get some more of the nitty-gritty. So, do you work with publications primarily or with design houses in the industry?
So it's a combination. Traditionally, clients are reaching out, big, small, medium, they have a budget, so it's either the casting director, the creative director,
Oh, okay.
sometimes it's the brands themselves, depending on the
Mhm.
are. But I will tell you what I really want to do, and again, doing agency differently, wanting to position us in a way that has been done, but only been done by the bigs. And
Okay.
I want to have that opportunity as well. I want to have partnerships with brands. So of course we were having a conversation about
Sure.
diversity and inclusion and all that stuff. And so um I want to be the diversity supplier, if you will,
Sure.
and to be clear, we don't only represent models of color, but majority of our board are models of color, right? So there's that.
Mhm.
But I really want to get into the game of having those annual partnerships with the large corporations that are allocating certain budgets for the year and then they're dispersing it amongst a handful of agencies. And so I really want us to be in that conversation. And then I also want us to be the go-to agency, right? First right of refusal for brands of color, Black owned and Black led brands, right? It should be a no-brainer.
Right,
That
right.
we are on their radar, that we are the first ones that they're calling to see our talent and wanting to give us business. Because if we're going to talk about wanting to further our community, this part is just really for our community where, people of color in this space, and there's so many of us, there's so many more of us. There are a lot of Black owned and Black led brands that are looking for this service. And I'm here to say, we are here. There is an agency that is in alignment with what you stand for. We want to be able to provide you that quality service. And for our allies, right? Because we were talking about that earlier too. And as you build, your friend Joanne says that their collaboration is the new currency, right? And so I really believe it.
Yeah, I believe it too.
And so we talk about we're not on an island alone. We're working and people are supporting us. And the people that support us don't necessarily always have to look like us. And we're grateful for that allyship as well. So to those people, I'm saying, come on over and support. Come on over to Strutville. It's nice and warm and cozy and comfortable. And we know what we're doing. We have great talent, and we want your support as well, because you also say that you're fighting that fight with us to open up the parameters for diversity. And so put your money where your mouth is.
Yes, you're right there. Yes.
Now,
Absolutely. Okay, you talk about working with the brand. Are you talking about design houses in particular or brands across every industry?
so brands across every industry. So design houses, right? Like again, those exclusive contracts are for a certain kind of girl, right? So like if it's Gucci or Prada, Chloe, where they'll be like, we want this girl, we're gonna exclusive, and then the girl does the shows, the campaigns, and all of those things. So that's great too. Our Strut girl is the perfect marriage between a high fashion and e-com girl. So she is not like super, super edgy. She's not girl next door because she's still got some edge and some flair, but she's cool and she's warm and she's relatable, and that's our girl. And those are the kinds of brands that I want to work with that are in alignment with that. And we want to partner with them on an annual basis or a multi-annual basis. But we're open for business, right? So everybody that needs models, holla.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So what should an up-and-coming designer prepare before contacting your agency if they needed a fit model?
Yeah. Well, they need to have money. That's the reality of it. It's like, business is business. And I just still don't understand like how this space has allowed for non-payment of like people's time and, name and likeness to be used. It's just weird to me. So
There's a whole bartering thing going
yeah,
on.
I cannot call Ed and tell him, I want to barter with them for some water, for some electricity. Like it just is not going to work. So, the truth is you have to come with money. You have to have a budget.
Yeah.
As you're coming to an agency, because when you think big scope about it, you cannot request a service for free where you're going to make money off of it. So young designers need to be coming in with that mindset and like respecting the space, having integrity for the space. Because I think that that's what's going to make the difference is coming in and saying, hey, I'm preparing myself in advance because I know that I'm going to be running a business, and in business you have expenses. And so I'm going to put a budget together. And in my budget, I'm going to have to allocate for a fit model, and that rate is hourly. And I need to allocate money, when it's time to shoot the clothes. And if that's e-com, and I get it, right? And so that's something that I've also even been thinking strategically about is like having some kind of package deal from designer. Like, hey, at this package point, I can get X and Z. Or at this package point, I can get A, B, C, and D. At the end of the day, the math has to math.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, what I've found is that many independent designers who didn't come up in the industry, they don't even know that they need a fit model.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a conversation that needs to be had because it's definitely a crucial part of the process. It's how you bring the product to market. You can't pass that step without sabotaging your product. It has to
Absolutely. Yeah.
fit.
I mean, well, a lot of people that are in modeling even know what a fit model is. So there's that too. When
Really?
we sign girls are like, oh yeah,
Wow.
you'd be a great fit model. And they're like, oh, fitness? Like, no.
Oh, that's hilarious.
um,
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so I have another question about being the face of your brand.
Mhm.
That you're all about giving face, right? At Strutville, in Strutville. So many brands, even in every industry these days, but of course I focus on fashion designers, they are hesitant about being the face of their brand, about showing up consistently on social media. They have, like many of us have had when we was started building our businesses, they have imposter syndrome. They feel like they're going to be judged. They want everything to be perfect. So what advice would you give them about showing up
Yeah.
in order to ultimately grow the brand?
Well, I just recently embraced being the face of Strut. So this is great. I'm
Really?
talking to you and I'm talking to them in real time.
Ooh, okay.
Um, because I struggled with that. People knew I was the owner, but I hid behind having a team. Like, no, social media is important. And I have all these amazing ideas on the execution piece of it. And really for that piece of like wanting it to be perfect and all of the things. So
Yes.
you just have to get out there and do it, right? It's as simple as that. They say people don't buy the brand, they buy from the person behind the brand.
Mhm. Yes.
I just really had to get comfortable with the fact that, hey, the S in strut stands for Shaw. And I really have to come to the front because I have a lot to say. And we're in an
Mhm.
era where,
Yeah,
being connected, like having that level of connectivity and seeing the process is important. It becomes easier and it's transferable in other areas of your business. So
absolutely.
don't be afraid of it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I criticize everything we do, every video, every whatever. I'm like, oh Lord,
No,
but I'm like, it's out there. I don't
right.
care. I did it. And then it gets better with time, but you have to start.
That consistency part is what's gonna make customers ultimately trust your brand and know that you're not gonna disappear one day. One thing that helped me, who wants to really be on social media every day, all the time? Not many people. Done is better than perfect. So just having a plan and then just getting it done, getting better over time
Mhm.
because you're so consistent. And
Having fun with it. I think that that's the part. It differentiates you, right? You need to understand like what differentiates you from your competition. And I will tell you right now that my competition is watching what I'm doing. They are imitating
or
it verbatim. They don't even have the decency to like change it up a little bit. I say something on Wednesday, they say the same thing on Friday. It's like, you know
oh
what?
my,
Imitation is the best form of flattery. And that also gives you confidence to know that like what you're saying resonates, what you're saying the market needs, and then you know that they can move until you move. So you just keep moving. And then the timestamp will prove who did it first.
and by the time they catch up, you're gonna be on to your next thing. That's what gives
Exactly.
me solace, because that happens to everybody. If you're doing something important, it's gonna happen.
Right.
So,
100%.
okay. So as we wrap this up, because you've been so generous with your time,
Yeah.
what has been the most fulfilling part of your journey thus far?
There's so many moments. The first thing that comes to mind is having my son witness it. He's only
Mm,
7.
yes.
And I started the company before he was born. But in the last 3, 4 years, he's been able to be a part of the process. And a couple of things that have happened recently that have really like, settled in my heart. He maybe like last year or so, he was at the office and he whispered in my ear. He goes, Mom, when you die, I'm gonna take over this place, right? Like this is so he said that's one woman. And it
Okay.
was hilarious because I just laugh at the most
Thinking
ridiculous
big.
things. And I'm
I
just
mean,
like, this kid. So that was the first thing.
wow.
And then the second thing, most recently, he said to me, Mom, I need a business card. Can you give me a business card? Because I want to be a scout for you. And
Wow.
it's like, do you
He's
know what I'm
learning.
looking for? He was like, I do. And then I had a layout on the table of the types of models that I was looking for. And he goes around to it and he goes, these models specifically
Oh my.
at 7. I'm just like, bro,
Oh, he's observing. He's learning.
he's learning.
Kids learn so much more from what we do than what we say.
Yeah. And then
Little do any of
yeah,
us know.
they do. They do. And then the third thing was him saying to me recently, what's your schedule? And I thought he was trying to be nosy to tell his dad what I'm doing with my time. I'm like, I'm not telling you my schedule. I'm giving him the side eye, like, what you want to know that
I
for?
would know.
Yeah. I'm like, what? And he goes, I said, why do you want to know my schedule? He goes, Mommy, because when I'm older, I'm going to take over Strut and I want to be prepared. So that from a personal standpoint, like that has been really fulfilling just to have my son see that. And no matter what happens, like he would have had that experience at such a young age to see his mom as a leader, building something from scratch and having the aspiration to one day take it over. And then, I just feel fulfilled that I get to do what I love. Now I'm really intentional about doing it with people that I love. And
Yes,
that
yes.
includes the models that I decide to sign because I told you I have gray hairs and I'm not trying to get as many more, until it's the time. But being able to offer a space and provide opportunity for the models to actualize their dreams, that's fulfilling to me. For my birthday yesterday, the girls sent in like birthday well wishes and some of them shared about like the impact I've had on their life and how grateful they are for me, and that is really heartwarming, and I'm fulfilled by that, to know that what, I can touch a life. And I like to say to them too that I know you're coming here because you want to model and you want to have a career and all that stuff, and I'm going to give you the tools and resources to do that, because I can email a client all day and show, show, show. I want you to look at me, as a young woman. And I mean, Black, yes, but just as a woman that has built something from scratch. And you get to see the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs and the twists and the turns, because I'm very transparent with the models about the journey, and the evolution and the transitions and all of those things. And so I'm fulfilled in knowing that I'm opening opportunity for these wonderful souls that are trusting me, and then I can have impact in a real way in their lives that will carry them on past their modeling journeys, and they could have me as a resource for life and love and business and parenting, and because I'm in all of those spaces, like I've gone through it. And I'm here to say I get it. I've done the thing and I'm done it again. And there's nothing that you're going through that I haven't really been through. I've been through a
Yeah,
lot. And so that's fulfilling. Yeah.
that's wonderful. Okay, love, love, love. So what is next for Strut Models?
Great question. Well, next is to pioneer in the space, right? To be the leading boutique agency in New York. That's what I'm positioning myself for. I want, people to aware that we're here, that we have amazing talent. And, I want to keep telling my story and keep advocating and keep creating impact. Ultimately, I say house the best and the brightest, from the darkest to the lightest.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really what's next, is like finding talent that is there, new innocent experience models, that want to be at a place where they are seen, heard, and valued. That's the type of talent I want to represent. And those are the types of clients I want to work with, that see, hear, and value the model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Okay, so is there anything that I did not ask you that you would like to share? We went through a lot, but is there anything that
Yeah,
you
no, I think we covered it all.
Okay.
I think we covered it all. Yeah.
Okay, so my final question,
Mhm.
a little deep.
Ooh.
We're so forthcoming when you talked about being fulfilled, so maybe some of that will feed into this.
Mhm.
So my question is, when you come to the very end of your days
Yeah.
and you have lived and loved and shared all that you hoped you could, what will your legacy be?
Yeah, that's great. I believe in legacy a lot, and my legacy will extend past my son unless I marry again and I get to have another baby, which I don't really intend to do. But you never
Never
know. You never know. You never know. I'm still young and fertile. So,
that.
so, if you're out there, well, it's like, no. No, but I enlisted. I'll tell you something about legacy, and this will help me to make a point. So I enlisted a mentor 2 years ago, amazing man. And when we met for dinner the first time, he asked me why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I gave him all my responses.
Mm,
He said, "If you'll have me, I'll teach you."
mm,
I said to him, I will be your legacy. And I said that because I believe that legacy is not insular, it's not linear, it's not
mhm,
just about your immediate family. For me, when I said that to him, I knew that the wisdom that he would impart on me, I would take that and run with it, and I would share that with others. And
mm.
they would take that and they would share with others. And so his legacy continues on. And that's the same thing that I want for my legacy is to really be able to position, of course, my son in a way that is amazing. And he's seeing this journey now, and I'm building it up so that he can take it over and create it for his own time. But additionally, it's having the impact on everyone that I come into contact, all the models that I have represented, all the other lives that I would touch as well, because I'm really committed to, I shared earlier, the social and community aspect of things, and impact that this
Yes.
work can have. And so, being a source of inspiration for young people is really important to me. So I want to sprinkle some legacy there, but ultimately leaving this space forever changed, that people will know that Shaw was here.
Right.
We operate in a wholesome and healthy and inclusive way because Shaw was here and she was committed to that work. And then I want Harvard to do a case study on how I did all of this with $2.
I
With
just want to
$2
say,
and a prayer. Okay. So there's the legacy, That's how I wanted to end. I can lay in peace knowing that I did the work, and
yes.
I was free to help others along the way. I was committed to creating opportunity for other people and being generous with that, having lasting impact. Yeah.
That was phenomenal. That was well, I feel that you've already made impact just by being who you are and letting your light shine. So keep doing what you're doing. There are always going to be people who are watching. I know that we know some are watching, but there are always going to be others that are forever changed just by seeing what you were brave enough to do.
Yeah.
So I commend you. I think what you're doing is so needed in our industry, and it's just beautiful to watch. And thank you for spending some time with me and sharing some of your story.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have you ever had a time when life was just doing too much? When my kids were small, life hit like a ton of bricks, and some things had to shift. And I thought that my designer dreams were over. We were a two-income household, so it got tight real quick, and that was a problem. I ignored it at first, but at that time, there was a small voice inside that kept saying that I should build my own brand. And today I'm so grateful that I listened because it has been the biggest blessing. Do you also have a small voice telling you that there's something more in store? Do yourself a favor and pop into the show notes after this episode for some helpful links that I share so that up and coming designers like you can build the brand of their dreams. This is your time. Thank you for tuning in to the Life by Design show. We welcome your feedback, so if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, leave a review, or share it with your friends. And if there's someone you think I should consider bringing in for a combo, send me a DM on social. Thank you again, and I'll see you on the other side.